Okay, good morning, everyone. To begin with a reflection, and I was thinking to continue with the theme of refuges and precepts. I took a look at the registration forms for everybody, and everybody seems to have a lot of experience already, and but I think one of the things that can be helpful with the practice and the different techniques and different types of meditation that one does is reflecting on the context. What's the big picture? Where do we put it into? Because so often what happens is whatever we are doing, it ends up getting subsumed by kind of either our own sense of self or the worries and concerns about me, or we get caught up with how does it fit into the world? How do we keep up with the world? How does it, all of the, and that's something that the Buddha addressed. He said there's something that this set of teachings that he gave is the things that take precedence in the Pali language is atipadaya, sort of the things that take precedence or become, that loom large. And it's usually loka atipadaya, so that the world looms large, and sort of and so we get swept up in the influences of the world, get caught up in that, or we get in competing with it or comparing to it or all of that, and the world and the values of the world take over. And atta tipataya, the self looms large, and American culture, the self looms large. It's just human culture. Generally, it's that sense of self, but I think it's the Western culture, Western philosophy has kind of reified the self, and that that's not necessarily a helpful thing. And then what the Buddha said, Dhamma tipataya, when the Dhamma looms large, or when the truth is what takes precedence. And so that's what we want to be trying to do. How do we shift things so that it moving toward truth, where what is of most importance, and that's not in a doctrinal way, or it's more like what are our values, and so that's why just something as fundamental as refuges and precepts is such a huge support, because so often we can be meditating and practicing and putting so much, but trying to perfect our personality, which I remember this which is hopeless. Lopez Tomatoes is this great one-liner. It's this, my personality will never get enlightened. And it's just so true. But but on a certain level, that's the most handy refuge for most of us, and so that it is just having that sense of what can actually take its place, or what do we, where do we want to direct our attention to, and that's why something like the refuges and precepts, where say Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha as a refuge, and not, I mean, of course, the historical Buddha is wonderful to read and about and to know about, but it's also the principles. What is a Buddha? What is a Buddha? And again, and I find the nicest because Buddha, just as a term, I was going to say a term, a word. It mostly means like awake, one who is awake, and that's like there's this discourse where the Buddha is sitting under a tree meditating, and a sort of a Brahmin priest sees the Buddha, sees these footprints in the sand, in the dirt, and he immediately says, that has the marks of a special being, and he follows that, and he sees the Buddha meditating under a tree, comes up to the Buddha, and he's completely enthralled by the Buddha's presence and that kind of sense of an aura that's pervading, and he asks, what are you? And are you some kind of celestial being? No. Are you some kind of deity, something ethereal? No. Well, are you some kind of sort of powerful being, a naga? No. Are you a human being? No. Are you, well, are you some kind of, are you an animal? Are you? And she goes through all the list of it. No. And so, what are you? And the Buddha's reply was, know me as one who is awake. Buddha Sami. And it just points to that quality of Buddha. And that's it's a in terms of the quality, that one who's woken up from the nature of the world, the nature of the self, and awakened to truth. And so that's having Buddha as refuge. In the Thai language, when they do the chanting for the recollection of the Buddha, then it clusters around three particular qualities. one who knows, one who's awake, one who's radiant. And those are beautiful kind of signifiers of the kind of the essence of the Buddha, or what a Buddha is. And so that fundamental capacity, and of course when we're thinking of Buddha, because the Buddha himself, when he taught, and also that, like, the Buddha, generally when we say Buddha, it refers to say the Gautama Buddha, the historical Buddha. But Buddha is more of a signifier of one who is awake. It's like in the say, like an arahant is called an anubuddha, like one who is maybe like a little Buddha, and but has in following the teachings, and has realized the qualities of awakening. So that's something that the Buddha as a teacher pointed is we all have the capacity to do that. And we get lost, we get confused, we get turned around, but inherently we have that capability, we have that capacity. And so that when we direct our attention to, say, Buddha as refuge, then we're turning to those qualities within us that have that capacity, or that resonance with awakening, with knowing, just this simple quality of being aware opens up all the possibilities for realization. And of course, so much of the practice is how do we clear out the clutter that seems to clog our awareness and our knowing and our awakened capacity, and clouds our radiance. So that's the practice. But it's having reminders, or having a vision of that is really important. And so that having Buddha, Dhamma as the teaching, but also just the fundamental truth, the way things are, truth of nature, is what Dhamma is, and being able to recognize. And now those truths, it's like the Buddha says he did not create this Dhamma. All he does is point it out. That whether a Buddha arises in the world or a Buddha does not arise in the world, all conditions are going to be impermanent, unsatisfactory, and not self. That's fundamental nature. But when we see that clearly, it has the capacity to free us, liberate us. So that fundamental truth, and the quality of Sangha, like when we do our chanting, recollecting Sangha, when we say the root base foundation for what we are recollecting is the 4 types, 8 kinds of noble beings. which everybody else, what the heck is that all about? But it's the basically what it is those people who have realized the path and the fruit of the 4 stages of awakening: stream entry, once returner, non-returner, arhat. And so that it's pointing to the that fruition of the practice, fruition of the training, the experience of freedom. And that's not pointing to, say, when we take refuge in Sangha, it's taking refuge in those who have practiced. So to say, when we say the one who has practiced well, practiced directly, practiced insightfully, practice for realization, practice with integrity. Those are that's what we're trying to take refuge in. So it's not a monastic or lay. It's about practicing and reaping the fruits of that practice, and taking our refuge in the reality that when the practice is done properly, appropriately, it bears fruit. And it's not fruitless, and it's just really, it's just is really important. So that sense of how we conceive of something, so that just that conceiving of ourselves as practitioners. Again, what are we practicing for? And you practice for peace, you practice for, and all of that is for knowledge and understanding is really important. But it's how we on a baseline. Where do we keep putting our refuge? And so that kind of like lifting up the mind to a refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, as opposed to that sense of getting caught in, am I succeeding? Am I failing? How good am I? How do I compare to others? And how do I? And it goes on and on. So, but just recognizing that the nature of the mind, how the mind works, is that accompanying or prior to all of our thought, whatever we think, there is a perception. There's a perception, there's a memory, there's an association. There's what in Pali is called sanya. So that what we, how we're perceiving something, how we're conceiving of something, and what do we associate with it? What is our memory evoking? And its associations. So that being able to turn the mind, turning attention to something that evokes a refuge, evokes a path, evokes a way forward. Because there's an obscure discourse I haven't heard it quoted very much, other than myself. But Ananda asks Sariputta, why is it that some beings are fully awakened in this lifetime and some beings are not? They just don't seem to get it. And Sariputta answers, well, the reason why they don't experience awakenings in this very life is because they don't understand the perceptions that are associated with decline as perceptions associated with decline. That this is, when we, it's just how much of the news is for our uplift and making the heart bright. So that's a perception. And we put that into our minds. You can't. You realize that you've got to, at least have some knowledge of the world around. But what keeps feeding the associations and memories and perceptions? So that recognizing that and say, okay, because it's when we recognize how that association perceptions work. Oh, that's for decline. Then we can be a lot more clear, a lot more and then also that, say, perceptions of stability. What are the perceptions, associations, the beginnings of thought processes that lead to stability? So that, refuges and precepts. That's that associating with good people, associating with, or just being out in nature. These lead to stability. Whatever it is that leads to stability, solidity, leads to the mind settling. Sitting. We can sit quietly, and we can sit and watch our breath, and let the mind become quite settled. Or we can sit and watch our thoughts and get entangled. So we know what is the perception associated with it, because we can adjust, we can shift. We have that power. Sometimes we really actually have to exercise discernment and patience, but we have that capacity, and so that sense of the perceptions associated with stability, and then the perceptions associated with distinction is, we say, so it's kind of states of mind that are special, that are really sort of as the mind becomes more refined, and or how do we even get there to refine the mind? The perceptions associated with loving kindness, perceptions associated with faith. Those are perceptions that really uplift the mind, brighten the mind, and or bring it to a place of real clarity, of that sense of the mind being kind of illumined. Really, it's a possibility, because it's sometimes we retreat into dullness just as a respite from our confusion. So it's, but we have options. And it's really important to see that we can exercise those options, and it's like any kind of muscle. You exercise it and it gets stronger. So the ability to direct attention and to direct the mind it's another muscle. It's learning how to use it. And the last one that the Buddha points to as a perception, or Buddha points to. Of course, the Buddha approved of the. Ananda went to told him of the conversation, and the Buddha approved of it. But is what's called Nibbeda, so Nibbeda Bhakya Sangha, associated with penetration, and that's more concerned with reflective insight, paying attention. Basically paying attention to impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, non-self, because it tends to lead to a penetration, sort of a dropping of the shell of desire and confusion, a tendency to lead to relinquishing and letting go, releasing, and that opens the heart. So that sense of whatever associations and that help to facilitate that is what is going to help the mind lead to to penetration and seeing through. Because even that word vipassana. We saw this is billed as a vipassana retreat. Vipassana is, say, as a word, this literally means seeing through. Passana is to see. We is to see through, and so that's a kind of penetration, and vipassana is always based on that clear knowledge of the just the fundamental nature of our internal world and the world around us, and impermanence is always the doorway to see things clearly. But that being able to keep on track is part of, again, that you're using these perceptions, reminding yourself of these associations. But say the bigger context is what do we take as refuge? What's the mind drawn to as a refuge? And so that drawing close to Buddha as a symbol of awakening, Dhamma as a symbol of truth, Sangha as a symbol of say skillful practice, skillful training, and those are all things that we can be taking refuge in. It's not that far away from us. So it's giving ourselves the encouragement and support while just coming to a retreat like this. And as I read on the sheets, and so people are most people have experience. You've been doing it. So that is just to keep refining. What is it that helps keep on track? Because it's not that there isn't a path to peace and freedom, liberation. It's just, we just have to do it. And of course, that's not the easy part. But what else do you do? I mean, kind of when you know, especially as one starts getting a glimpse into the kind of the, well, what's it feel like to be peaceful, or to have a clear refuge. And say, yeah, this is well, it's not that I want more, that I need more of this. So it's something to, and that's not. I just say there's two different kinds of desire. Tanha, which the Buddha points to as a basis of suffering, and that's always ends up in suffering and in some kind of dukkha. But chanda is another word that's used for translated as desire, but that's more like motivation, and we need to know how to motivate ourselves. We need to know how to seed skillful desire in the heart. Otherwise we don't do it. That's kind of basic, pretty fundamental. Also, I mean, thinking in terms of refuges, precepts are kind of the form that it takes in terms of living on a day-to-day basis. Certainly the 5 precepts, it just is a something that the Buddha, you know, points to there's one discourse where he talks about the 5 great gifts, Mahadana, sort of the great gift, great offering, great giving, and of course then, you know, well, what are the 5 great gifts? I mean, must be something really special. So, oh yeah, not taking life, not taking what isn't given. That's basically keeping the 5 precepts. And he says that's a great gift because it gives the gift of safety, security, of compassion, and so that we live together as human beings comfortably when we can live with a sense of trust, and so that those precepts lay that foundation. So in terms of living a day-to-day life, that those 5 precepts are fundamental for keeping clarity and grounded and connected in a really wholesome way. Then on, say, occasions like this where we have a retreat, then there's 8 precepts are what are called renunciation precepts, so that there's a level of renunciation there. And renunciation is kind of, in English language, is kind of a bit scary. But it's around what is it that facilitates simplicity. So that when there's a simplicity of life and lifestyle, along with the moral precepts that are fundamental to a skillful life, then that sort of adding a level of simplicity and certain clarity, so that just refraining from sexual activity just takes out a whole lot of complication. And it's all voluntary, so that it's not it's something that we take on. Okay, I'd like to try that. I'd like to do that for at least for a weekend, and not eating in the evenings. It's just trying to cutting back with food a bit. Stepping back from entertainment and adornment, jewelry, makeup and whatnot, and then just a simplicity in sleeping, where we sit, where we sleep. It's when I first went to live with Ajahn Chah, when I didn't know the language, so that just learning the Thai language as it going, and then as you're learning the language and learning the teachings, of course there's certain phrases that you hear over and over again. And early on, one of the phrases I kept hearing Ajahn Chah exhorting the monastics, and saying, eat little, sleep little, talk little, practice a lot. This fundamentals of practice. So that again, that taking on of the those 8 precepts helps to facilitate that, and that's there's a useful benefit. But also say in a Buddhist society, Buddhist cultures, it's something that the lay people would do on a weekly basis, in the same way that in say Judeo-Christian religion of a Sabbath once a week, having a holy day, and so in Buddhist practice, and there'd be following a lunar calendar, which say tomorrow is a new moon. That's for the say like in our monastery, then there's special practices. There was also pujas and meditation and teachings given. In Thailand, then they would at Wat Pah Pong, not in Thailand. That's a bit too general. But certainly at Wat Pah Pong and its branch monasteries, and then it's a day and a night of keeping the precepts, and for many people, just staying in the monastery and keeping the precepts and sitting and being with fellow practitioners, reading Dhamma, discussing Dhamma, doing the pujas, doing meditation, and then staying up through the whole night. Leaving at dawn the next day, and it's not just a handful of people that are. Say Wat Pah Pong is, usually on as Wat Nanachat, the international monastery, that there's usually at least 100 people, and oftentimes more. So it's something that, but the Buddha was designated these lunar observance days. I mean, it's something that the monks did already in terms of on full moon, new moons, they would have a gathering and do a recitation of the training and make renewing that commitment to the training. Then there's a discourse where the Buddha is sitting and reflecting, as in that there's this the lay people are there's many lay people who are really interested and committed. What can I do to help facilitate their sort of their training? And he said, well, we could have them come to the monastery and live for a day and a night without taking the life of any living creature, and they could live like the Arhats. And so it goes through the 8 precepts. So that they're not taking what isn't given, really living with real honesty, and living like the Arhats. And so it's that commitment to that training, and then that simplicity of just not eating in the evening. It's a simplicity of lifestyle, a commitment to putting forth a little bit of extra energy. And that's a great sort of opportunity to give oneself. So that the refuges and precepts, having a perception to orient one's aspirations, and then a form to fulfill it. And of course, it's bare bones, and you fill it in after, and that's part of practice, is being kind of innovative of how do I make this practice work? How do I make a training work? Because it's not just through keeping a bunch of rules or just keeping a form that realization happens. It's but relying on that form and breathing life into it, making it something that is relevant and useful and conducive to increasing one's understanding. So that's a endeavor that we are embarking on for this weekend, and again, just planting seeds for what people can take back to the world with them, back to day-to-day life, because that's where the practice continues to bear fruit. So I'll offer that for reflection this morning.